Thank you. No public meetings or hearings, no presentations, consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything on Councilor Taylor?
Yeah, I'd like F 1.5 poll, please.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have a motion?
I do. So the motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of item F 1.5.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no correspondence, reports from officials, F.3, 3.1, fire report for the, oh no, we've done all those, right? That's all part of the consent agenda, is it not, Madam Clerk?
It is.
Thank you. Adoption of the regular agenda. Do we need a motion for that?
I believe you just did that, Your Worship.
Reports from official, H.1, planning and development, planning report number P22004, re-official plan amendment, OP2101, and zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-16, 388015 Ontario Limited, 3156 and 3174 South Sparrow Lake Road. Any discussion? Or Brad, you'd like to speak? Brad's in his new office.
I am. Good morning, Council. I'll just pull up the presentation we have for this. Hopefully everybody can see it. So this is official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, OP2101 and Z2116 for lands located at 3156 and 3174 South Sparrow Lake Road. We have an overview location map here where you can see both of the subject properties. 3156 is shown here in orange, and that is the lands that the Lake St. George Golf Course are located on. And 3174 South Sparrow Lake Road, which is a vacant residential lot shown here in purple. The lands are located immediately west of Lake St. George, in between South Sparrow Lake Road and Nichols Line. The 2018 aerial imagery, just to give a little bit more context as to how the lands are currently developed. Again, with the golf course and the vacant residential lot here that a portion of the 9th hole encroaches on. The applicant's agent prepared this site plan here, just giving a little bit more context to what these applications aim to do, which would be to facilitate moving this residential lot further north along South Sparrow Lake Road to the area shown here in yellow. And then subsequently, they would merge the residential lot back in with the existing residential lot in with the golf course lands to form one parcel. So as discussed, these applications are to support a future boundary adjustment to move that residential lot further north along South Sparrow Lake Road to the location shown in yellow on the previous slide, where a historic farm dwelling had previously existed. The applications would allow the applicants to maintain one residential building lot while also consolidating all of the golf course lands into one property. So as council may recall, there was a public meeting held at the November 2021 Planning and Development Committee meeting, and there have been no comments received from the public to date. During the public meeting, the committee did have a couple points that were raised. The first being the use of the shoreline residential designation on lands that do not have frontage on a water body. As discussed in a bit more detail within the report, the location of the residential lands or the proposed residential lands are within the riparian area of the water body. So it's well established that there needs to be protections in there to protect the ecological importance of that area, which the shoreline residential designation achieves. And also by moving that lot further north, it is becoming closer to the water body. So for those reasons, staff are still of the opinion that the shoreline residential designation is the most appropriate to apply. The second point that the committee had was with respect to future or additional development proposals of the land. The applicant's agent has advised that they do not intend to submit any further applications. and staff do not anticipate those applications coming forward. However, if one was to come to the township, it would need to be reviewed in accordance with the policies that are in effect at that time. Further to that comment, staff are also recommending within the site-specific zoning bylaw amendment that a minimum lot frontage and area be imposed that would reflect the dimensions of the lands that are proposed to be designated shoreline residential. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, the committee passed the resolution or the motion seen here on screen, which did direct staff to bring the application directly to a council meeting with a review of the applicable planning policy. And given that there have been no public comments received to date, a second public meeting was not scheduled. So as detailed within the staff report, planning staff are of the opinion that the applications are consistent with all applicable planning policies. The MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, has advised that a record of site condition will be required because the use of the lands is becoming more sensitive, moving from the golf course commercial use to a residential use. Planning staff are comfortable requiring that record of site condition through a condition of consent, allowing the applicant to continue working through the applications before council this morning and working out some of those finer details in their subsequent Planning Act applications like the severance application. As mentioned, there have been no public comments received, no internal staff departments provided comment or objection, and the County of Simcoe has stated that they have no objections to the application. So therefore, the planning department has no objections to the approval of the application, and should Township Council and the County of Simcoe approve the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw would be brought back to a subsequent council meeting for consideration. So that concludes the presentation that I have this morning. If council has any questions, happy to answer. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad. Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
Through your worship to Brad, I find it interesting that the MECP would think it was more environmentally when it was just a resident. When you think of the fertilizers and everything that goes on a golf course, why would a home be more susceptible?
Brad?
Through the mayor to Deputy Mayor Dunlop, it's under the Environmental Protections Act, where it talks of the use of lands becoming more sensitive. So when it moves from a commercial use to a residential use, the residential use is more sensitive than the commercial, which triggers the need for the record of site condition.
Okay, thanks. I just find that interesting. That's all, Brad. Thanks.
Any further comments? So Brad, just for some clarity, so if council approves the application as it's written today, so you commented that it has to come back to council. What are the next steps for the applicant? Like, what do they need to do? Just so I can understand better how the process works.
Yeah, so to the mayor, should council today approve the official plan amendment, it would go to the County of Simcoe for consideration, as well as they're the approval authority for official plan amendments. And then if the county approves the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw would then come back for council's consideration.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
similar to the 15 Michael Ann property in Coldwater, this application would follow a very similar process.
Thank you, Brad. Any further comments? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have a motion?
I do. The motion reads that planning report number P22-004 dated February 2nd, 2022, with respect to official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 3156 and 3174 South Sparrow Lake Road be received. And further, that the official plan amendment included within the general bylaw section of this agenda be considered for approval by Township Council and forwarded to the County of Simcoe for consideration. And further, that should the official plan amendment be approved by the County of Simcoe, that a draft bylaw amendment be presented to council for consideration thereafter.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by, wow, how many? It's moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Bettesworth. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on. Planning H1.2 planning report P22-005 request for extension of draft plan of subdivision approval Westshore Crescent plan of subdivision SVT-0706-2595 Westshore Crescent Block C. Good morning, Ms. Woodrow. How are you?
Thank you, Mayor Burkett. Good morning. If I may just share my screen with you, if you don't mind. Just take me 1 second here. Mayor Burkett, are you able to see my screen, a map on the screen here, a draft plan of subdivision?
We are, thank you.
Thank you very much. So the request before you today is for a 1-year draft plan of subdivision approval extension for an 8-lot infill subdivision on Westshore Crescent. Much progression has been made on this file over the last year. We're at the point where we have a draft subdivision agreement, and we are reviewing what we hope to be the final engineering submission. However, with the draft plan approval expiring in March, there's just not enough time to be comfortable that we can get the subdivision agreement before council before that expiration date. So the request before you is for a 1-year extension, just to provide that extra buffer. The one thing in the report I did want to note is that the landowner does wish to begin removing some trees on this property in preparation for the subdivision. It is of a size that does not trigger the County of Simcoe's forest conservation bylaw, so they did let us know out of courtesy. So we're just passing on that information here at the meeting. The one thing we have recommended is that out of courtesy, they also provide notice to the neighbors before they begin that process, and that they wait until the County of Simcoe gives their final consideration of this request before any of that tree removal begins. Thank you, Mayor Burkett.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Stevens. You're muted. You're muted, Councillor Stevens. You're still muted. Hey, Ron, you're muted. Just hit the bar, Ron.
Space bar.
There you go. Oh, you're still muted, Ron. Oh boy, better call.
Allison can
There you
unmute.
go. Okay, Ron, you're muted. You'll have to start right from the beginning, Councillor Stevens.
Whoa.
You're okay now. We can hear you now. So just start right from the beginning.
That's fine. As you well know, Mr. Mayor, this is not the first time this has been before us, and the fact that it's known legally as Block C, which is on Westshore Crescent. The last time we got involved in this, it was quite a battle between neighbors and everything else that simply should not have happened, but unfortunately did. The owner of the property wanted to move ahead. However, it created so much hassle between everybody over there. They just backed off, as did everybody else. Now, what I'm seeing now here is the request for the delay of 1 year doesn't seem unreasonable to me, and I would in fact support that based upon the fact that we're looking at a maximum of 1 year before this development proceeds, and that we then watch closely as to how it comes about. So that's my concern. It's a concern that has been expressed to me by a number of neighbors over there, and I just want to make sure that their interests are well represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Bettesworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Andrea. Just a little history here, Andrea, please. Was for the people that were scheduled to buy these lots surrounding this piece here, was this represented to them as a forest or a wooded area for their use? Was that what it was supposed to be in the original plan before they have come back and asked for the development of that piece? Thank you.
If I may, Mayor Burkett, through you to Councillor Bettesworth, certainly this was recognized as Member Stevens had noted as Block C on an overall plan of subdivision for the larger area. It was zoned residential at the time and not open space or environmental protection. So this draft approval was originally granted by the County of Simcoe in 2009, but unfortunately, just due to previous market conditions and the small scale nature of the proposal, it hadn't progressed until now.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair to Andrea. Andrea, they're not going to go in and clear cut, are they? Are they going to try to leave some trees? Because otherwise they're just going to have to replant, because we do have that requirement.
If I may, Mayor Burkett, through you to Councillor Cox. So certainly the entire area is not covered by trees. It's more of the central area. So those are proposed for removal at this time, but they will be required to plant trees through our requirement for new subdivisions. So nothing of environmental significance has been recognized. However, just good practice is that tree removal is completed before April, as you've heard on other files.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue here clearly was that tree cutting company walked in one day and proceeded to start to rip the trees down. And the net result is that nobody had any advance warning whatsoever, and they were just absolutely shocked as to what was happening to the property that they have looked after so well for so long. And that's why I'm saying again that I think they would probably be in a position to accept a 1-year holdover, but that would be all unless something happens in terms of moving that into a better condition. Thank you. That property, I mean.
Thank you. Any further comments? So I'm going to speak, Ms. Woodrow, just for the benefit of council. So I remember back in 2009, I was sitting here in the council chambers when then Mayor Stevens for the city of Orillia spoke on behalf. They arrived at their home and all the trees were cut. So I'm struggling with this to vote in favor of this only because this has been on the books for years. If they're going to go now and they have until April to clear cut those trees, do we have any guarantees that they're going to start to build in the spring? I would rather them come back next year to the new council, and if they are in a position to start building, they would have ample time to cut those trees rather than disrupt that whole neighborhood again and find out that they may not build for another 5 or 10 years. And I know that we don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if we can somehow ask when their intentions are to start building these new homes.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would share your comments there and would agree that if they're prepared to do this in the manner that the Act calls for, then I would think the neighbors there would probably have a lot less concerns with it.
Thank you. Ms. Woodrow.
Thank you, Mayor Burkett, in response to your questions and comments, as well as Councillor Stevens. So the size of this property does not trigger the Simcoe County Forest Conservation Bylaw. However, what I'm hearing is, regardless of that, good neighbors let other neighbors know when things are going to happen, even though they may not have to. So, excuse me, in this particular case, we have spoken with the landowners. Their intention is to advise the surrounding neighborhood when they plan to cut trees. There is a sensitive window, as you know, that has to be considered, and typically tree removal is to be done before April. Just because of migratory birds and that sort of thing. So because we already have a draft subdivision agreement and because the engineering is almost finalized, the landowners are in a very good position to be building within, the next, hopefully 6 to 12 months. So that is why they are hoping to clear the trees so that they can begin building as soon as possible and not have to wait until next year.
So, Ms. Woodrow, just to your comments, I understand that, but only the history of this, and it's the same group of people that owned it back in 2009, the original owners. Like, I'm struggling again because we haven't done the site plan yet. We have no idea if they're going to start to build this year. They say their intentions are that they are. We now are allowing them to come in and remove the trees that are there. I see no reason why we couldn't leave it until next January and allow them to come in and cut again if they're certain that they're going to start to build in that time frame. Like, I'm just struggling to uproot all the neighbors now by allowing them to cut the trees with no intentions to build only because of their past record. I'm struggling with it. I see Madam CAO wants to speak. Go ahead.
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. I think council needs to be clear that what you're approving here is an extension to the draft subdivision. You're not approving cutting trees because you don't have that approval authority. Exactly. They can go and cut the trees today if they like. Ms. Woodrow said it doesn't fit the county definition that you need permission. So you're not giving them permission. They don't need your permission. You're giving them permission to extend the draft plan of subdivision. And I think at this point, if council doesn't give them permission, then you will see an OMB appeal that you're probably not going to be able to support well.
Okay.
So I think you need to make distinct the two issues that you're talking about and what you're being asked to do.
All right. Thank you for that clarity. Councillor Stevens, did you want to add anything?
Well, I guess, Your Worship, my concern is where we started when all this broke loose last time in 2009. We had this area called Block C, as I've already indicated, large piece of property that was totally covered with foliage, and within 6 hours, nearly half of it was gone by a logging group that was hired to do so. So I'm sticking my neck out in terms of the neighbors if it's possible to do this, but if there are members of council who really feel we should be backing up a little bit until we get some more assurance, then I would certainly support that too.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. But listening to Madam CAO, we really have no authority to not allow them to cut the trees. I misunderstood what was said. Any further comments? Ms. Woodrow, as part of that site plan agreement, would they have to put in sidewalks? I'm just curious.
If I may, through you, Mayor Burkett, no, I don't believe this includes sidewalks on this particular plan, but if I'm incorrect, I'm sure Mr. Burke will correct me.
All right, thank you. Any further comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Stevens.
I should advise you that they already have sewer and water connections for that subdivision in place.
Yeah, thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do we have a motion?
Thank you. So the motion reads that planning report number P22-005 dated February 2nd, 2022 with respect to a request for a one-year extension of draft plan of subdivision approval for 2595 Westshore Crescent, file number SVT 0706 be received, and further that the Township of Severn endorses the one-year extension of the draft plan of subdivision approval, which is scheduled to lapse on March 14th, 2022, and further that the County of Simcoe be advised of the Township's position on the extension.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dunlop, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Stevens, did you want to speak? You put up your request to speak sign.
I'm sorry. No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you. Administration, we go on to 2.1 is administration report number A22-007, Cogeco Municipal Access Agreement. Mr. Burke. Maybe he doesn't want to speak to it. There he is. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Yes, this is so we've gone through some iterations with Cogeco under our municipal access agreement, and you'll see there that we're fairly close. They do have a project deadline that probably is pretty fast. They want to be able to complete their SWIFT funded program up in the Cogeco area by the end of the year, actually more closer to September. So we're accelerating an approval and authorization to enter into this final agreement. And we're both on the same page there. We've had our lawyer look through this agreement as well. It's a pretty standard agreement, but it does set the guidelines for how the municipality interacts with the telecom agent.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Burke, when it says North Cogeco, is that on Severn Street that they're going to provide service as well?
It's predominantly on Canal Road and down mostly Canal Road, actually, and Pinecone Trail, I believe.
Okay. I think they're going down West Canal as well, but there was in that SWIFT report, I think I read that they were doing Severn Street as well.
Yeah, but through the chair, we can give an update through our municipal consent process because that is where they will get approval from the municipality to install their plant.
All right, thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
I do. The motion reads that administration report number A22-007 dated February 2nd, 2022 regarding Cogeco Municipal Access Agreement be received, and that council approve the attached draft agreement in principle, and further that the required bylaw to authorize the agreement be brought forward immediately.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to new business, F 1.5, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I read the report here, and in my previous life, I dealt with governments, and when you get audited by a third party, this is an excellent report. And I think rather than buried in the consent agenda, I like to pull out and say congratulations to Derek, Tony, and the staff for a job well done. And it's consistently going back to 2009, and way to go. And I'm hoping that we can acknowledge their efforts. It is an excellent report, and hopefully council can acknowledge that to the Public Works staff.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Very well done. So Derek, if I may, are you still there?
Through the mayor, yes.
So when I look at the scheduled work orders, like you look, it's on what page? Page 6. So 427, like what would a work order entail? Like those are residents that are having problems, like just so that I understand what happens, even reactive maintenance work orders as well. You had 100.
Certainly.
Like, just giving us an example, please.
Yep, absolutely. So that's a printout from our computerized maintenance management software, and a reactive would be, let's say, a water main break like we had on Muskoka Street a couple of years back in the middle of the night, or an alarm for perhaps turbidity or loss of power, that sort of thing. And then planned ones are work orders where we would send out staff to do routine maintenance, maybe exercise a valve, clean a top of a pump, and run a performance test on the pump itself to ensure that it's going to continue to service as well, that sort of thing. So yes, 400 in the year, individual work orders.
So thank you, Derek. So part of that would be the water, what do you call it? Those ones that the fire department hooks up to, the water mains, do they go around and test those as well? The hydrants. So
yeah.
That would be part of that 427?
It is, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do we have a motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's simple that the DWQMS management meeting minutes of December 16th, 2021 be received for information.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Bettesworth. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any announcements?
Oh, Your Worship, I think we've skipped the bylaws.
Oh, did we? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we have the bylaws. They skipped down to the bottom. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion for the bylaws?
Thank you. It's that bylaws number 2022-01 to 2022-07 inclusive be and are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Cox. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cox, did you want to speak? Wrong card.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to, through the chair, to acknowledge the fact that publicly that we have now 2 new building inspectors, Nina, and I'm very sorry, DeAndrea Matteo and Simon Lohar. So I just thought that we should, acknowledge the fact that we hired a new one and we have a replacement person. So that's good to have them on our team, and we're happy to have them.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, a mover and a seconder. So it was Councillor Stevens and Councillor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to announcements. Any announcements? Deputy Mayor Dunlop. You're muted. You're muted, Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
Sorry, through the mayor. It's not an announcement, but do we not have a spot on the agenda to ask for staff reports through council?
That's a good question.
It's not here. I'm asking, I'd like to direct it to Allison.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the request for staff report section was removed from the agenda 2 updates ago to the procedural bylaw because council has the opportunity at any point in time to send myself an email requesting that an item be on the agenda that they can put a motion on to request a staff report. So, and it would just go on under other business. So, anytime.
I'll send you one then for the next council. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any further?
Sorry, Mayor Burkett. Just to Deputy Mayor Dunlop, it can go to, anytime you send me one, it can go on the next committee meeting or council. It doesn't need to wait for a council meeting. It can just go on the immediate next agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further announcements? Okay, no closed session, confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion reads that bylaw number 2022-08 be and is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Cox, second by Councillor Stevens. All in favor? That is carried. And adjournment, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that this meeting be and is hereby now adjourned at 9:31 a.m.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Deputy Mayor Dunlop. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Madam
Good day,
CAO.
everybody.